Muslim masses will now emerge. And therefore the Jews are going to have their throats cut. This is going to be the most dangerous moment in the entire life of the world of Jews. The media will portray it. If we don't do something, we will all be slaughtered by these Muslim fanatics. Yeah? I tell you, this will be drama worthy of Hollywood when it comes. Huh? They must be hating me now for revealing their secrets. It is in this scenario that Israel will say, we have to do something. If we just sit here and do nothing, the state of Israel will be destroyed and the Jews will all be slaughtered. What can we do? They call it a preemptive strike. A preemptive strike. But it won't be a preemptive strike. It will be the most dazzling display of the magnificent application of state-of-the-art military technology that will leave even Uncle Sam in the backyard. A war like Uncle Sam has never seen and could never wage. That is what Israel is going to wage. Do they have the technology? I believe they have technology that even Uncle Sam doesn't have. It will be a lightning strike. Israel has to put on this magnificent display of military power and state-of-the-art technology beyond anything else that the world has ever known, in order for Israel to impress upon mankind the validity of its credentials that is now going to become the new ruling state in the world. Before Fahad could even blink, the Israelis have taken over the Saudi oil fields. And the Iraqi and the Kuwaiti oil fields. The United States, of course, will make some noise, and Britain will make some noise, but will they send troops? Not, of course not. The United Nations Security Council is now going to be used by the rest of the world, particularly Uncle Europe, and Uncle Japan. And the rest of the world. They will take the United Nations and seek to use the United Nations now to do something about this. Collective action to force Israel to withdraw. Because if Israel does not withdraw, Europe is going to be choked, Japan is going to be choked. And as the United Nations is now being used for the first time in its history, an attempt is being made to use the United Nations effectively by the rest of the world, I anticipate that the United States Congress, the Senate, and the House of Representatives will now pass resolutions forcing the US government to withdraw from the United Nations. And as soon as the United States withdraws from the United Nations can no longer sit down in New York, pack up and move. So in the same way that the League of Nations collapsed, the United Nations now collapses. United Nations cannot be relocated anywhere else. Yeah. Because the United States is the ruling state in the world. The League of Nations collapsed because the United States was not in the League of Nations. That's why the League of Nations collapsed. And so the United Nations cannot be relocated anywhere. No, it can't take it to Geneva. It's not going to work. And so Israel gets to hold on to the fruits of her naked aggression. And Israel takes control of the oil of the Middle East. It may be that it would be that moment when the US dollar collapses, But more of this in my lecture on Islam and the international monetary system, and you would be amazed. We say we follow the Quran, but we lie. We lie. We say that we follow Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, but we lie. We lie when you attend our lecture on Islam and the international monetary system. When Israel becomes the ruling state in the world, then Israel will rule the world for a day which is like a week. If you doubt me, and you doubt my method of analysis, I say no problem. Just wait. Just wait. It is at that time that oppression of the true followers of Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam will really begin. The part-time Muslims, of course, will be attacked now and then for purposes of psychological intimidation. So they put their tail between their legs and go back home and watch TV. But the full-time Muslims are going to be attacked and targeted, and they'll know you from your bank account. That's all. Your bank account will tell them everything they want to tell. The Prophet said alayhi salatu wasalam about this oppression, that a man would pass by a grave and roll on the grave and say, I wish I were in the grave rather than the dead man. Not because of religious reasons, but because of biting, relentless oppression. So if you're comfortable in Sydney, and you think that things are going to continue as it is, and you will get away from the storm, the war on Islam that's going on now, and yet you can remain as a good Muslim, you're living in dreamland. Because the war on Islam is going to intensify like nothing you've ever seen before. What you've had so far is only an introduction to the war on Islam. The war on Islam has been going on for more than 1,000 years. Not since September the 11th, wake up. The Crusades were part of the war on Islam. The same people who launched the Crusades are the same people who dismantled the Ottoman Islamic Empire, are the same people who destroyed the Caliphate, which is my lecture for tomorrow night, Imam al-Mahdi and the return of the Khilafah. It is the same people who today created the state of Israel and control the state of Israel. It is the same people who are going to be ruling the world. The European, who was first dressed up as a Christian and is then dressed up as a Jew. After Israel has ruled the world, of course, for a day which is like a week, at the end of that period of time, what's going to happen to the water in the Sea of Galilee? We dry up. It is only when the water in the Sea of Galilee is dried up, it is at that time, according to the ahadith in Sahih Muslim, you can go and check it out, my book is downstairs, Jerusalem in the Quran, go read it. It is at that time that you can expect the Son of Mary to return. So when I said, I expect it to be 50 years from now, about 50 years. And when I put into the record for your tape records, for those who listen to this lecture when I'm dead and gone, when I said, I can be wrong. And some people still have objections to his saying that he expects the Son of Mary to be coming back in about 50 years from now. Okay, I'll change it. All I have to say is I expect the Sea of Galilee to be dried up in about 50 years from now. Huh? That's all I have to say. The same thing. Because the Son of Mary will return when the Sea of Galilee is dried up. So if they have objections to that, all I have to say, well, I expect the Sea of Galilee to dry up, 50 years, and they'll be happy with that. Huh? It is at that time that Dajjal will now enter into a day which is like our day, and therefore he'll be in our dimension of time.